Alright, so I'm always doing videos trying to emphasize the value of human life and the psychological state of your citizens in your nations. And so the average income of a person in the USA, low is going to be about 50,000. Middle income earners are going to earn around uh, 56,000 to 170,000, and the top 20% are going to earn over 170,000, right? And so from the time of 18 years of age, on account of the average life expectancy, people will get about 60 years of work out of their life. This means that on average, low income earners are going to earn 1 to 3 million, mid income earners are going to earn 3 to 10 million, and high income earners are going to be earning over 10 million in their lifetime. That means on average, the majority of people will earn around 3 to 4 million dollars taxable income during their lifetimes. And so there are contributing factors that will play a critical role in assessing these numbers. For example, while it is not politically correct, race, religion, and things like that will, educational background, etc., will statistically play a role in how much people earn. Statistically, blacks are about 2 times as likely to be unemployed in the USA compared to whites. And so understanding who you are letting into your nation is going to be important, and these numbers will vary due to geographical location, religion, education, things like that. Again, right? So understanding that listening to people's agendas is not really a really good way to run a nation, right? You want to assess, you want to use the mathematics and statistics to assess who you are letting in, to forecast the future effects that it will have on your nation, right? And so make sure to run the numbers on crime, etc., because as I'll show you, crime has a large impact on the success of a nation. And so there is a known direct correlation between racially diverse populations and crime rates. If we jump to the end here, and you want to look at, these are going to be top real GDP earners on the Eastern continent: Ireland, Poland, Turkey, Lithuania, Hungary. And so some of these are majority indigenous populations. Hungary is saying we're not taking anybody. Poland is also pretty much saying, Poland, they shoot people trying to run their border into their nation. And so understanding that keeping your citizens safe is going to be important if you want to be able to reach high GDP growth in your nation, high productivity, right? People want to build in a place that's safe for their families. And interestingly enough, I'm noticing a trend on X that there are a lot of people looking for safe places to move. Even a lot of people asking, where should we go, right? So understanding this is important, because the nation that can provide that safety for these people is going to yield a large amount of people who are able to travel, right? They are financially capable of traveling. And so oftentimes these are going to be desirable individuals, often, right? Not always, as we're seeing in the case of the UK, where they're being flooded with immigrants, and that's not really so bad, but the immigrants happen to be violent and trying to take over and so. All right, and so these are going to be the top cities with the lowest GDP growth on the right here. Top cities with the lowest real GDP growth in the United States of America. Now, these are often correlated. A low GDP growth is often correlated with a high crime value. And so pretty much if you look these up geographically, you will see that St. Louis is very close to Memphis, right? So high crime cities, well, the crime, it tends to spread around the area. And so once corruption and crime has taken over one city, it often spreads throughout the area. And so this will make dealing with the corruption and crime, keeping people in those areas safe, more difficult. And right, so jumping on the crime, like we're seeing Donald Trump do in the US, while it may not be so popular, it is actually extremely financially productive for your nation, and making sure that your citizens are safe, right? Providing that safe environment is going to be critical for achieving high GDP numbers, right? And so if in the case of Illinois here, right, we see many hits in one area, right? We have Chicago here, we have St. Louis here, we have Cleveland here, and these are all listed on the some of the highest crime cities in the United States of America. And so Illinois, the situation is spreading, it is getting worse, and we in America are going to have to deal with it. We are going to have to get tough on crime in order to bring these outliers back in line with the rest of the nation. And so understanding this is going to be important, right? Right, because if someone is damaged in your nation, right, we just had this shooting of 6 in Chicago, right? Well, that's potentially $24 million lost to the United States of America. And so understanding that these shooting incidents, while 6 people were shot, these shooting incidents, right, for every 1% crime rises in an area, about 2% of desirable, wealthy people will leave that area. And so once the wealthy people have left, right, we're seeing a large flight of wealth from the UK. Estimated in the first quarter of this year, about $200 billion to $500 billion left the UK. Understanding that is important because when tax season comes in the UK, right, they are going to realize their immigration policies are going to have long-term, massive detrimental effects on their nation. And so while each person will generate, right, 3 to 4 million on average in their lifetime, a loss of a life or damaging of a person's psyche to where they're not able to perform to 100%, maybe they're missing work, maybe they go into alcoholism, maybe they go into depression, etc., 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 right? Keeping the psyche of your citizens healthy is going to also be important, right? So understanding this is going to play a major factor in keeping a nation's GDP competitive, so that down the road the nation is not conquered and destroyed, as if you look through history, you will see that happens quite often. It is very common for people these days to believe, oh, we have nuclear capabilities, nothing will ever come. But the chances that EMP weaponry or something that can neutralize the nuke is developed is almost a certainty. And so understanding that remaining competitive, keeping your economy competitive with China and the United States, it is important so that you do not end up like Ukraine, right? So understanding this is it's good. It's good to understand and not pretend like there's no problems that you have to address in the world, things like that. Right, and I feel like that these factors of the citizens' financial productivity, they're not exactly emphasized enough by leaders of the nations, right? You see leaders of the nations, it seems like the UK, they don't care anything about their people, and if you don't have your people, right, which are generating the finances I'm talking about, well then what do you have in a nation, right? You don't have a nation anymore. So understanding this is really important because the immigration policies that we're seeing today throughout the EU, UK, and Canada are going to have long-term negative impacts that are going to cause their GDP effectiveness to decrease. And so understanding that when you look at Ireland, Poland, Turkey, maybe not so much with Turkey and Lithuania, but Hungary, right? There are important major contributing factors that are very, very useful to identify. Now, crime as elected officials, right, in democracies, it is sometimes difficult to address because, right, while Donald Trump is addressing it in the USA, he's not really popular for addressing it in some groups, right? Overall, Donald Trump is extremely popular in the U.S., but there are fringe groups of people who are speaking out and biased media sources, things like that. So understanding there will be some blowback It's important. Let's see. Right, there is a heavy geographical correlation between once one city becomes infected with crime and corruption, right, it spreads. Um, and so I think, so Memphis, Tennessee alone in the U.S., right, is costing the U.S. around $1.4 billion in homicides alone. They have somewhere around 344 homicides a year. And so that is costing the U.S. $1.4 billion a year just in Memphis, Tennessee alone. And so since we are seeing it spreading, right, this cost will be drastically increasing, and it must be stopped. Otherwise, these costs will increase even further. Now, that being said, another interesting factor, and I'm sure there's more that I haven't researched, but identifying these factors is going to be critical in selecting who you want around your daughters and sons. If you notice, Donald Trump just met with the Prince of Saudi Arabia, but you don't see Donald Trump bringing the Prince of Saudi Arabia around his family, right? So understanding this is important because sometimes the politicians, they're not eating from the same plate as they force their people to eat from. And so this video should indicate that it is actually good for rulers and nations to take a serious look at what they are bringing into their nation and eat from the same plate as their people, because, right, like I'm saying in the UK, if you don't have people there generating finances, and on account of the immigration, on account of the crime that is resulting from importing unvetted mass illegals, the UK's economy is going to suffer for quite some time. And so, that being said, religion, right, there is also a heavy correlated factor in the financial productivity of a nation, as well as crime rates. So in Dearborn, Michigan, in the U.S., over the years, as it has been decreasing in percentage Christian and becoming a Muslim majority, crime has been skyrocketing. It has been going the same way of the UK as we are seeing Dearborn become less and less safe. It ranks around 20 to 40%, so it's very, very low on safety rating, and its crime is 89% higher per capita. That's really bad. And so when you see people or a religion saying, oh, we should kill other people or things like that, you might want to take that into account, right? People don't use these very powerful words of hatred often without having a good amount of belief in them, and you'll see this in feuds like Israel and the surrounding areas, right? They're not very friendly with each other. You might find some restrained, disciplined diplomats who hold their tongue, but often people will be very rude to each other. And so this data of crime, and in this case it is Islam being heavily correlated, is also reflected in London, right? And so if you look at New York City with a population of about 9 million, and you look at London, right, New York City not being majority Islamic yet, although we may see some more Islamics moving there, the UK's London has a knife crime surplus of about 517%, although the population is the same. And so understanding this is important. Lastly, right, majority Christian nations will outperform majority Islamic nations' GDP growth by about 3.5 times. And so understanding that, identifying these factors, and not playing into childish fantasy ideologies like everybody's the same. Well, that doesn't make any sense, right? An engineer is not the same as a police officer, right? One man is not the same as another. So understanding this is important when you are selecting who you want to let in your nation, and making sure that they're going to provide a safe environment, or that they come from a similar culture, right? If you look at crime statistics, white and Asian people tend to be very, very low. Our cultures are both mostly based on respect, hard work, things like that. And so there are going to be demographics and indicators that will help rulers identify who they should let in their nation and who they should not let in their nation, when you should listen to people telling you, yeah, immigration's great, and when you should not listen to people, right? Because obviously, less productive nations, less successful nations, or nations that are higher in crime, they're going to want to leave. And you'll see this a lot in India and other third world nations, right? When they get enough finance to move out, they often move out. And so just opening your gates to people who want to do everything to get out and away from their nation, it's not really a good idea, and it can have absolutely destructive effects, as we are seeing in the UK today. Now, it's important to understand that the economic numbers that are generated from nations are often done by those nations. And so in the case of the UK, and I've been looking at some numbers in Canada, going, that doesn't really make much sense, possibly on account of the Trump tariffs. You might want to do your research on your own, and if you're seeing in other nations that are successful, if you're seeing crime stats like this, well, then you can know, crime is not going to have a positive effect on the UK. And so the numbers that are coming out of the UK, if they're saying they're positive and you know crime's going up, well, you should be able to discern that there's something a little fishy going on. You might want to do a little more research. This is going to be a model that is quite useful, because sometimes you'll see mayors and governors touting numbers, and they don't always come out as accurate as they might be portraying. I've been looking at the GDP growth of the U.S. under Democrat versus Republican, and the Democrats, they state they have a higher GDP growth rate per term, but recently, the Democrats just came out and said, actually, we were fudging the job numbers a little bit. And so understanding that this fudging does go on, it should be taken into account. And so finally, in the USA, we are dealing with crime, and it is being addressed, illegal immigration, things like that. And we're getting them out so that crime goes down, the crime correlation with racial diversity and religious diversity, it's a big factor in the USA. But what I'm loving seeing under the Trump administration is that, one, you can tell the administration cares a lot more about its citizens than previous administrations. So this is going to have an extremely positive effect on the well-being of a nation, when the citizens of a nation and the people of the world realize that your nation cares about their citizens, when you see a large incident of crime in the U.S., under the current administration, you often see the president send in the FBI and people to look into it, So this reflects that the administration cares about its citizens that are extremely valuable, because without citizens in business, you don't really have a nation. So understanding that caring about your people and making sure to express in words and actions, that you care, it's going to be important. And so lastly, as politicians or rulers, if you feel like you don't really know how to address these issues, the cops will, and military men will, And so don't feel too high and lofty unto the point where you can't consult other people, Wisdom considers all sides and then makes a decision, And so if there is an area of high crime, assigning military personnel or a captain or judges, in the Bible, they assigned judges to handle cities that had become crime-ridden, and this creates distance, the image of distance between the peaceful politician and the military commander, So understanding this is going to be important, so don't hesitate to help out, reach out, and make sure that your people understand that they are important.